Hello, we're back. Sorry about a little delay here. Today we're going to talk about password protecting Google Drive files, something that could be extremely useful and helpful for many different purposes. We're going to cover a couple of things. We're going to cover just doing the password protection, and then we're going to go, after I explain how it works, we'll go and do another example just so you can see how fast and how quickly this can be done. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the screen sharing here. Okay, so I put in the link to this form here, and as you can see, it's pretty simple. When you actually run the form, it looks like this. So when you actually click on it, you will see this particular screen come up. And as you can see, um, it's a regular Google form, nothing super fancy. Very easy to set up, very quick. We'll do one in a minute, just like it, so you can see exactly the process of how to make it work. And so first I figured we'll start with the demo, so you can see the physical, actual functionality, I should say, and then we'll go into the example as to describing exactly how it works. So here I have a simple screen that comes up and says enter the password. If I click submit, it tells me I got to put something in because it's a required question. If I put some kind of bogus thing in there, like my name, it says you must enter. So no matter what I type, basically, if I type in anything, it just immediately comes up with this little reddish display and says you must enter the correct password. So when you send people a URL, like I put in the event there, that has the URL to go to the form, as you can see, people cannot go any further or access the file at this point without actually entering the password to get to it. So you're using the form as a guard, if you will, to get to the actual file. And so if I put in the right URL, and in this case it's my son's name, Benjamin, you see what happens is it'll actually come up without any kind of red errors. And now I can click on submit. Now, if this particular entry has to be with the proper case letters. So if I type in something like this, as you can see, it'll tell me that it's wrong. Even as soon as I start typing anything, it knows that it's wrong. But as soon as I type in correctly, it goes like this. So it's very easy. You can see visually it looks nice. You can, of course, customize in terms of how it looks. And then when I actually click submit, what's going to happen is going to come up with a link for me right here on the next screen. It's a security check, and it says I can access the file at this URL. So when I actually click on this URL, it redirects me to the file, and the file happens to be one of my pictures, one of my photos. Okay, so this is the physical functionality of how you get to how the whole thing would work if you're trying to share a file with somebody with security in place. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and step through the steps required to actually make it work, so you can see exactly how you can do the same thing. So let me jump back to the screen share here. Close the screen here. Yeah, I'll just jump to the screen share. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to close this, and let's just go to forms.google.com. So we will start a brand new form. Okay. Before we do that, though, let's jump to Google Drive, and let's see on Google Drive. We'll find some other picture or something. Of course, you can do this. I'm doing pictures. You can do it with any kind of file that you put in Google Drive. It could be a document, could be a spreadsheet. Let me see if I have anything here. We can. Let's look at the spreadsheet here. Yeah, that's fine. This is just one of the old spreadsheets I had. Okay, customer feedback form. So let's say we wanted to link to this particular spreadsheet, right? And so we'll leave it up for right now, and we'll get to it later. So the first thing what you want to do in this process to be able to password protect is create the form. And I'm going to close my forms. So we'll start with a brand new one. So you simply click go to forms.google.com, step one, and you click on start a new form. Okay. As soon as you start a new form, this is what it looks like, display looks like. And at this point, what you do is you simply change the title to be something else, like PCS file access, whatever you want to call it. You can put a description, you can leave it however you want. The actual field name is going to be called password, and we're going to make it a short answer field. So that's, basic setup for the password. Very simple. We're going to make it a required field by clicking here. So it's going to be required so people can't just bypass it. And then the other thing that we want to do is we want to be able to indicate how to get to our file. And the way that's done is by, well, two things first. To get to our file, we're going to have to do settings on the form. But right now, what I want to do is I want to set up the actual data validation, which is the key thing that checks the password. So in the data validation part here, you simply select text contains, and then you put in your password. In my case, let's put in the password of, I'll put in my last name, so it's nice and complicated. Okay. And you can make it as difficult as you want. I mean, let's make it a little more difficult password. We'll put something like bang. I don't know. T1079 bang. Got two bangs in there. Even better. Okay. So you can put anything you want to be the password. Okay. Anything you want. And in the custom text field, this is where you indicate the error message that people will see if the people don't put in the right password. So we can say something like, please enter the correct password. This is the message people will see if they put in the wrong thing. So again, we got T1079 bang bang, and we're just saying text contains and this particular thing. Okay. This is all you have to do to set up the basic access form. So we got a new form. We put in one single field on it called password. We entered through pull down here data validation for it, indicating it's going to be a text that contains, and we enter the actual password we want to use for this particular access point. And that's all you have to do on the field. The only other thing remaining is to actually point people to the right place. So if we go to the spreadsheet we want to share, then if we click on the share button, then it comes up with the usual share with others, and you can put in emails, things like that. In our case, what we want is we want to get a shareable link, which is the the option here at the top. So you simply click on it, and it says link copy to the clipboard. So now we have access to this file through this shareable link. Okay, great. Now we go back to the form, and yeah, we'll just call it that. That's fine. And then on the form, we're going to pull down the settings for that particular form. And one thing you could do is you can say can only submit one response, which means person will type in the password, and if they submit correctly the password one time, it will give them access to the file. After that, they will not be able to get to it using this mechanism. So typically, you want to be able to have people access it more than once, so you leave it alone. And then submit another response. We don't really need to do the submit another response, because once they enter the password, they have access to the file that they need. We're basically done. So I usually check that off. So everything basically is checked off on this settings for the form. And what we want to do on the message for responders, we want to say, you now have access to the file at URL, and you paste the link that we copied when we share the spreadsheet. So you just simply hit Control V to paste it, because it was in clipboard already. So you just paste it. Okay. Of course, if you wanted to make this URL short, you can use the Google shortening service goo.gl to make this URL be short URL, and that's what you post here. So it looks a little nicer, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any difference in terms of access. You can use either approach. Then you click on Save. And essentially, this is all you need to do. I know it looks deceptively simple, but that's all there is to it. Okay. And so now, if we actually try to click on the preview here to see how it works, Let's try to see what happens. It comes up and says PCS file access, right? And it's got the password thing. Again, submitting this doesn't do anything. It says you have to put something in. Putting in something bogus doesn't do anything. You get the idea, just like the first time. So if we put in 10, I'm sorry, T1079 bang bang, now it goes white, meaning it's the right password. Then I click on submit, and now it gives me this last screen that says you now have access to the file at URL, and it gives me the link. All I have to do is click on the link, and there is my spreadsheet. Okay, so this is the basic steps required to get to any Google Drive file that you want to set up by using this simple approach. You set up a form, step one. You put in the password field, which would be a short text on that form. You go ahead and set up data validation for that one field called password to indicate that text contains, and you enter the password you want to use. So that's the setup for the form. And then you go to the cog wheel at the top of the form, and you enter the URL. The actual message itself there would be the URL of the file you're trying to access, which would be something you get as a shareable link from any Google Drive file. And once you have it done, that's it. The only thing you do at that point, you just share the actual form itself, like you do any form, with the people whom you want to give access to. And of course, they do not have the URL of the form. I'm sorry, the URL of the actual file. All they have is the URL of the form, which means that they have to go through this password process and enter it before they will have actual link they can see to go to the actual data file itself, which makes it exactly how we want it to work. So you send people the form URL, and then they're able, by putting in the right password, access the file itself. So that's the process. You can see, I've been talking for whatever it's been, like 10 minutes, and I already showed you a demo, and I already showed you setup. So you can see it's a very quick approach. It's very simple to use. Just follow these steps, and you can potentially protect any file. Now, when I say the thing is not bulletproof, what I meant by that is that when you share a file using a shareable link, that makes that particular file shareable by anybody who's got that link. And this is where this process has a little bit of flaw to it, meaning that if somebody gets that URL and they got to the file you were sharing with them, then they can use that same URL to send it to somebody else, just the URL itself. And of course, then that other person, whoever they send it to, will be able to open the same file without doing anything. You cannot limit it to just saying, I'm going to give this password thing to this person. And because of this approach that's being used with this shareable link, that shareable link can be shared with anybody. And with that being the case, that means that if that person decides to give this link to somebody else without the form, just the link itself to the file, then they'll have access to the file. And it also is the same goes true for the person who received the file. At that point, they can do a number of things. They can make a copy. There is a way how you can prevent people from downloading, and so there is some limitations you can put in on the share where they can't do, simply download it or make a copy of it or anything like that. So there are settings in share in the documents themselves where you can indicate that, so you limit people to some degree. But at the same time, you cannot make it completely and totally bulletproof by if you use this approach. So I just wanted to make that very clear. So when you're sharing with somebody using this password approach, be aware that this is not 100% bulletproof security precaution. It still is an excellent way to share something with people, because maybe you're sending something to somebody, to some parents from school, or there's many different examples. I'm sure you can come up with some examples of how this might work really well, where you don't want people to immediately go to the file. You want them to enter a certain password to be able to get to that point. So the first time they're going to have to go through this hassle to enter it. And of course, then you can always revoke the privileges by, there's a number of things you can do. You can change file name. You can move it somewhere else. There's a lot of things you can do to just stop people from using the same link. There's many different ways to do it. But the premise of it is pretty simple. It's easy to implement. And for most people, they're not going to mess around with it. It's just going to be, they know they need to have this password to be able to access it, and that's how they do it. So that's the password deal. Now let's go ahead and do something a little different, and I'll show you how you can use the same approach. Let's just jump here to the forms again, and let's get out here to forms. Let's say we wanted to do a, for example, let me just quickly jump to my drive and see if I have any PDFs here. I'm sure I have some PDFs here. So let's say that we have the PDF here that has, let's see, it'll be a good PDF. Yeah, that's as good as anything. So let's say we have this PDF here, okay? And so if we go and get the link for this PDF, let me just copy that link. And so we will share this link with the people. And so then we go back to forms. And so we can set up a new form. And this would be an example of a squeeze page. I'll actually call you squeeze page. It's not a very nice name, but that's what it's officially called. So let's just do that. And here we're going to call it, let's see, put in name. And that's going to be a short text field. And we're going to make it required. And then we're going to make a copy of it. And that's going to be an email here. And also going to be short answer. And we're going to do data validation on this particular field to say that is going to be a text that is an email address. And say, please enter a valid email address. And so that's just, you don't have to do this part, but I like to do it because it forces people to put in the, normal email address, not some bogus thing. And for name, we're not going to do any data validation. Whatever they put in, they put in. But we do require it. So we got these two fields, right? That's good. And then on the, again, going back to the settings, I'm going to go ahead and leave the submit another response. So if we have multiple people trying to get to this page, or try to get multiple times, but actually no, let's just do it one time. It's up to you. If you want them to be able to go multiple times, you could, but let's just leave it all off, like in the last example. And here we're going to say you can now access the PDF for the upcoming webinar at the URL such and such. Okay, let's just go with that as the message. Okay, and then we save that, and basically we're done. So what's going to happen now is, as you can imagine, when we run this deal, it comes up with something that looks like this. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to look like that. I mean, you can call it anything you want. You can also click on, as we did last week when we talked about forms, it's easy enough to click on a little palette at the top, select an image icon here, and either change color scheme or go with something that, I don't know, let's go with this image here. And you just put in an image, and now it looks like that. And let's go to preview. See? Beautiful, right? You can do it for like a wedding invitations to see who's going to be coming to the wedding. But in this particular case, what we're trying to do is give people something like this particular page to enter their name and email in exchange for getting the PDF. A lot of people do pages where they say, we'll give you a free PDF, or we'll give you an entry to whatever, access to a particular page that may have video. It could be anything. It really, literally could be anything. And so we're going to say here that, when they put in their name, so we'll put in Oleg and put in, see, it verifies, make sure it's valid email. I put it in, and now it says I have access to this PDF here. And so when I click here, it comes up with a PDF file. So here's an example of a typical sales scenario where you set up a page saying to get access to a particular PDF that has 1 or 1,001 pages, doesn't matter. They need to enter their information, their name and email address. And once they enter it, then it will allow them to access the PDF itself. So it could be a white paper or something else. So you can see how quickly you can set up a page like this. Let's use another example. Let's say that we go here and we'll change the destination to be a web page. It doesn't have to be a document on Google Drive. I could just say put in please proceed to PCS to the PCS page for the spec zone via HTTP www.pcswork.com/spec zone. I think that's what I called it. .php. I think that's what I call it. So hopefully that's what I'll call it. If I didn't, we'll fix it. But the bottom line is you put in some kind of URL here. Okay. Now we save the form, and now we try it again. And so now we put in another name. Let's put in name Ben in here, and that in there. And now if I click on submit, it's going to come up with this as we expected. And now if I click on this link, as you can see, it goes right to my PCS page that talks about the spec zone service, which is a way to add an inexpensive IT department equivalent to your small business. So if you were interested, feel free to check it out. And I won't talk about this in detail today, but I wanted to bring it up so you can see that any small business that requires any small business does require access to technology and using technology to be able to compete properly and stay in business, if you will. And unfortunately, most small businesses, you have one person, a couple of people, they can't afford to hire somebody full time to take care of their technology, information technology needs. And that's where the spec zone service that my company is running allows you to do, is to affordably get an equivalent of your own IT department. So if you want more information, please contact me on Google+. I'll be happy to provide it. There's also a collection called Spec Zone under the PCS page that also has several videos that show how the service works and what it does and how much it costs and things like that. So that's the Spec Zone. But this is the example I wanted to show you is precisely how you set up some kind of a page that's kind of like a doorway or a gateway, if you will, to either a web page or a PDF file or a document of some sort. All of this can be done using this exact same approach. Before I quit today, let me just quickly find the gentleman that actually, this wasn't my idea. This was I originally got the idea for basics of how it works from there is somebody that's running. I got into it by sheer accident, but it's they're running I think it's called Google Classroom Tutorials. Google Classroom Tutorials, and it's something that's basically, there's a YouTube channel, and Google Classroom. Now I can't find where I found this. Okay. Anyway, I think that's what it's called. I'm going to go ahead and put the URL to this person and the link to them into the event comments. I'll just dig it out and put it in there, because they're the ones who initially, I don't know if they actually invented this process or they stumbled on it themselves, but that's where I initially saw the concept. And it's a very simple and at the same time very doable by anybody. You can see there's no code involved, there's no programming, there's no third-party tools, and yet you're able to do this kind of gateway entry either with a password or just having people indicate their name and email. I'm sure you can come up with enough other variations and uses for something like this for other purposes as well, using the same approach. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me on Google+. Until next time, thank you very much. Bye-bye.